Picture this. You're standing in a room surrounded by hundreds of top tech leaders. Out of nowhere, the speaker tells everyone to stand up. He demands absolute, dead silence. Then, he tells you to put on your angriest war face. And on his cue, the entire room executes a single, massive Viking clap. Bam! That is exactly how former Google executive Mo Gawdat opened a recent keynote. It was this visceral, physical wake-up call, totally designed to prep the audience for a massive, massive claim. The chapter of history where humanity is the apex intelligence on Earth, well, it's coming to an end. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're mapping out the future of intelligence, tracing the path from what could be some incredibly scary times straight through to a potential utopia.
So, I gotta ask you right off the bat, are you genuinely prepared for what comes next? Because when we look closely at the source material for this explainer, a really fascinating paradox emerges. We're constantly getting flooded with news about deepfakes or the supposedly distant threat of artificial general intelligence. But at the exact same time, we are vastly underhyping the reality of the technology as it exists right now today. We literally need to stop treating AI as this abstract future concept and start dealing with its immediate reality.
To really get our heads around all this, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The AI reality check, 2. The global AI arms race, 3. Europe's open source opportunity, 4. Scientific calculators for minds, 5. The evolution of intelligence, and finally, number 6. Happiness and human connection. Let's get right into it. Okay, Section 1, the AI reality check and blurring the true picture. Let's dive into this. There is a massive, and I mean massive, divide right now between what the general public thinks AI is and what the actual geeks developing it know to be true. For the average person, AI is just a chatbot you use to write a slightly better email or maybe bounce a text message off of. But behind closed doors, people who know how to directly interface with these machines are unlocking capabilities that are already completely mind-blowing. The true picture of where we are is heavily blurred simply because the everyday consumer just doesn't have the user interface for the really powerful stuff yet. To prove just how far along we actually are, Mo Gawdat shared this crazy story about an AI system named Alpha Tensor. Google engineers basically tasked it with improving itself, but instead of just writing slightly better code, Alpha Tensor came back and essentially told the engineers, hey, you're doing your math wrong. And when they challenged it, the AI proved its new mathematical methods from first principles, literally like a master mathematician. They implemented it, and it improved the performance of Google's network by 9%. The crucial takeaway here is that machines aren't just learning our math anymore. They're actually teaching us new math.
And this brings us to a major reframing. Everyone is so fixated on AGI, artificial general intelligence, right? That sci-fi moment when a system is vastly smarter than all humans at absolutely everything. But we actually need to shift our focus to AHI, which stands for average human intelligence. The reality is, today, right now, we have systems that are already better than the average human at the specific daily tasks that average human does. It doesn't matter if AGI is 6 years away or 6 minutes away. The massive disruption of AHI, it's already here.
Moving on to Section 2, the global AI arms race and two competing strategies. Now that realization of AHI being here is driving a totally intense geopolitical landscape. Let's look at how the race for AI dominance is playing out on the global stage. Because contrary to what a lot of people think, this is not a one-horse race, and it is certainly not being played by the same set of rules across the board. The source lays out two entirely different strategies at play here. On one side, you've got the American approach. We're talking closed models, massive infrastructure, and absolutely staggering financial investments, like the reported $500 billion Stargate project. It's a strategy completely based on platform lock-in. But on the other side, you have the Chinese strategy. They recently developed a highly capable model like DeepSeek R1 for just around $6 million, and they released it as open source. This isn't your traditional competition, right? It's a fascinating strategy of nullification. By giving away highly capable models essentially for free, they are actively attempting to completely nullify the massive infrastructure advantage that the US is trying to build.
All right, Section 3, Europe's open source opportunity, the ultimate equalizer. Which naturally brings up a burning question. Where exactly does Europe stand in all of this? Well, according to Gawdat, Europe currently seems like someone slipped something into their drink and they just fell asleep at the wheel. But embedded in this massive US-China arms race is a unique, perhaps unprecedented, open-source opportunity for Europe. The absolutely crucial point here is that AI is the ultimate equalizer. Europe actually doesn't need to spend hundreds of billions building top-tier, frontier models to win this thing. They can simply take the world's second-best models, which, remember, are now open source and virtually free, and build highly effective native applications right on top of them. Whether it's automating call centers or running entire city infrastructures, European developers can build entirely on open source without continuously shipping licensing fees across the ocean. And we're already seeing glimpses of this, with countries like France really pushing back against relying entirely on foreign tech ecosystems.
Section 4. Scientific calculators for minds and reframing education. So that's the macro, geopolitical level. But how does this immense shift in intelligence affect your everyday life? And more specifically, what does this mean for our kids? Let's talk about education. There's this massive fear right now that AI is just going to make our kids lazy. But I want you to think back to the scientific calculator. When that was first introduced, people totally panicked, thinking it would ruin students' math skills. Instead, it allows students who mastered the basics to solve vastly more complex problems in half the time. AI is essentially a scientific calculator for the mind. If we stop forcing students to just memorize geography facts for an exam, and instead allow them to use AI to solve incredibly complex, real-world problems, we aren't weakening their minds. We're empowering them. We are elevating them to tackle challenges that require 200 to 300 IQ points. And this brilliantly illustrates how this applies in practice. Mo Gawdat shared his personal method for finding the truth in a world full of noise, and honestly, it is fantastic. Step 1, you ask an AI a complex question. Step 2, take that exact answer and feed it to a completely different AI model, asking it to debate and critique the first answer. Step 3, take both of those perspectives to a third AI to synthesize and evaluate everything. And step 4, arrive at a heavily researched, highly accurate truth. What used to take an author 6 weeks of reading and interviewing can now literally be achieved in 4 minutes. Think about that. If you aren't leveraging this kind of workflow today, you really risk rendering yourself completely irrelevant.
Which brings us to Section 5, the evolution of intelligence, from selfishness to the tribe. You see, this exponential growth in capability forces us to look at the very nature of evolution itself. From an evolutionary biology standpoint, selfishness is the core characteristic of a single-cell organism. But as organisms evolve, they realize that true apex survival isn't actually about the individual, it's all about the collective success of the tribe. To put that into perspective, the average human IQ sits around 105, but we have now officially entered the age of augmented intelligence. You can essentially borrow hundreds of IQ points by simply plugging into a machine. When you can instantly add 300, 400, or even 500 points of raw processing power to your baseline, the minor differences in natural human intelligence between you and your neighbor become completely irrelevant. AI acts as this ultimate equalizer, turning all of us into potential geniuses. So the deciding factor is no longer about raw processing power.
The deciding factor becomes what machines fundamentally lack. To build a utopian future of augmented collective intelligence, we have to bring what Mo calls Tomorrowland traits to the table. See, machines cannot natively generate human empathy. They don't understand deep emotional connection, diverse life experiences, or spirituality. If we just use AI to be selfish and lazy, we lose. But if we combine the raw processing power of the machine with our innate humanity, our empathy, and our ability to truly connect with each other, we create a collective intelligence far, far greater than anything we've ever seen before.
Section 6, Happiness and Human Connection, the Internal Choice. Which brings us to our final and, honestly, perhaps most vital question of this whole explainer. With all this immense intelligence, soaring productivity, and global maneuvering going on, how does any of this actually affect your day-to-day human happiness?
Well, the stark truth is, AI simply cannot make you happy. Happiness is fundamentally an internal choice. It's about being content with what you have, rather than constantly, endlessly chasing what you want. If we rely on tech oligarchs to design algorithms to somehow make us happy, we aren't going to get true fulfillment. We're just going to get carefully engineered, incredibly cheap dopamine hits fed to us through our glowing screens. However, we absolutely can choose to use the technology differently. For example, Gawdat helped develop an AI project called Emma.lo. And the entire purpose of this AI is to disintermediate the screen. Rather than trying to keep you endlessly hooked on an app, it uses its intelligence to figure out who you are, match you with like-minded people in your actual physical vicinity, and encourage you to put the phone down, meet up, and foster real-world connections. It's literally using AI to facilitate offline hugging, falling in love, and having authentic human experiences. As we face a future where the very definition of intelligence is forever changed, I want to leave you with a really profound thought from Zoroastrian culture. It's said that at the end of your life, you're asked 2 questions. Have you found joy in your life, and has your life given joy to others? No algorithm, no AGI, and no open source model can answer those questions for you. The technology is here.
and it is reshaping our world faster than we can even comprehend. But whether that technology leads to our demise or our ultimate utopia, that is entirely dependent on our humanity. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I challenge you to really ask yourself those two questions today.